Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at some changes over at X,
Yeah.
formerly Twitter,
Right.
since Elon Musk took over. And you guys sent us a really interesting article to look at for this one, and the author makes a pretty bold claim, basically saying that X has moved beyond just having like a hate speech problem.
Yeah. Okay.
We all know that every platform has to deal with content moderation,
Mhm.
but the author's saying this is different.
Mm.
They're saying X is now fundamentally built to amplify white supremacist content.
Yeah, that's a pretty, I mean, that's a big statement, right? It's one thing to say that a platform struggles with moderating content,
Right.
but to say that it's designed to promote a very specific ideology,
Yeah,
that's a whole other level.
absolutely. And they give some pretty stark examples of how things have changed since the Musk takeover. I mean, this isn't, just like a few more bad actors in the comment section.
Yeah.
We're talking about, they cite a surge in blatant racism, even instances where, like,
Yeah.
the World Bank had to pull their ads because they were appearing next to pro-Nazi content.
That's wild.
And get this, they mentioned that posts celebrating Hitler
Oh my goodness.
are easy to find.
Yeah, I mean, online platforms have always grappled with hate speech.
Of course.
That's nothing new. But what we're talking about here does seem like a pretty significant escalation.
Right. And they don't just throw around general observations. They actually get into specifics.
Yeah.
Like they talk about Congressman Clay Higgins.
Oh, word.
He made this really disturbing racist post about Haitians, arguably even like inciting violence.
Mm-hmm.
And despite having policies against this kind of content, X did nothing.
That's really concerning. And it makes you wonder about the role that Musk himself is playing in all of this.
Well, that's what the article gets into.
Okay.
They suggest that X has essentially become like a vehicle for his own personal political agenda.
Interesting.
I mean, he's always on there sharing his opinions on
Yeah.
immigration, voter fraud, you name it. So it's not hard to see how that could influence the platform as a whole.
Right. And it's not just online rhetoric. This
Yeah.
stuff can have very real consequences.
Yeah, and they highlight a really disturbing example of that. They talk about how X was used to target the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio,
Oh, wow.
by white supremacist groups, like
Mhm.
real people in a real community being targeted because of what was being said, amplified on this platform.
Yeah, that incident in Springfield is a chilling illustration of how online hate can spill over into the real world. And it really connects to this larger and even more disturbing trend.
You're talking about the Great Replacement theory.
Exactly. It's this baseless conspiracy theory that white populations are being intentionally replaced by people of color.
And this isn't just some fringe idea. The article points out that Musk himself is engaged with this concept.
Really?
It's pretty scary to think about a platform with X's reach promoting such a harmful and unfounded idea.
Absolutely. I mean, the Great Replacement theory is rooted in white supremacist ideology, playing on fears of demographic change and loss of power. And it's been linked to real-world violence, like the El Paso shooting and the Charlottesville rally.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it really brings us to another troubling point that the article raises, which is this inherent tension within a platform like X.
Mm.
On one hand, it has the potential to, amplify important social justice movements, give a voice to the marginalized.
Right.
But on the other hand, as we're seeing, it can also be a powerful megaphone for hate speech.
It's a total double-edged sword. And the
Right.
article really digs into the evidence suggesting that X is failing, maybe even deliberately failing to moderate this hateful content.
Cool.
They cite statistics from X's own transparency reports, the data they release about their actions.
Right.
And they bring in research from independent organizations like the Center for Countering Digital Hate and the Anti-Defamation League,
Oh, wow.
all pointing to the same conclusion. X is becoming a hotbed for hate speech.
And they don't just rely on statistics. They provide a whole list of specific examples where X seems to have totally dropped the ball. Cases of pro-Nazi ads running on the platform, verified accounts with openly racist handles, and even evidence that the platform's algorithm, the system that determines what content users see, may actually be promoting this kind of hateful content.
That's really disturbing. To understand how that can happen, we need to talk a little bit about how the algorithm works.
Okay.
It's designed to show you content it thinks you'll engage with based on your past behavior and the behavior of other users.
So like if I click on a post about, climate change, it's going to show me more posts about climate change.
Exactly. But that can create an echo chamber effect where if you engage with hateful content, even just to disagree with it, the algorithm might show you more of it and even suggest similar content to others.
So even if you're not actively looking for it, this hateful content can end up right in your feed. And the article makes this chilling comparison. They say that the kind of content And the way it's being promoted on X is starting to look a lot like what you'd see on known hate sites like Gab.
Yeah, and that brings us to another disturbing element here. The role that normal users like you and me play in all of this.
What do you mean?
Think about it. We're the ones who give X this veneer of respectability, who make it seem less extreme than it actually is. Our presence, even if we're not the ones posting the hateful content, helps normalize the platform and makes it more attractive to advertisers and investors.
So even just by being there, we're contributing to the problem.
That's the argument the author's making.
Okay.
And it leads to their own personal struggle, which they really lay bare in the article.
What do you mean?
They talk about how they've gotten a lot out of X Connections opportunities, a platform for their own voice, but they're finding it harder and harder to justify staying on a platform that seems to be doing so much damage.
So it's like this moral dilemma.
Yeah. On one hand, leaving X means giving up a platform that, despite its flaws, still holds value for a lot of people. But on the other hand, staying means potentially contributing to a platform that's actively promoting hate and causing real harm.
It's a tough choice, and it's one that a lot of people are facing right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a tough one. And the article goes on to really dive into X's own transparency reports.
Those are supposed to give insights into how they're handling things like hate speech, right?
Right, exactly. But the numbers paint a pretty bleak picture. Before Musk took over, Twitter was actually suspending a good number of accounts for hateful conduct.
Okay.
But after the takeover, those numbers have plummeted.
Really?
Even though reports of hate speech have gone way up.
So is it just incompetence or is it deliberate?
That's the question, isn't it? And the article points out that Musk has actually made it even harder to get a clear answer.
How so?
He's made it more difficult for researchers to access data from the platform.
So less transparency, basically.
Exactly. It's almost impossible to get a truly accurate picture of how bad things have gotten.
Wow. So even with limited data, though, we're seeing some pretty disturbing trends.
Right.
The article highlights research from the Center for Countering Digital Hate that showed a massive spike in anti-Black slurs on X after Musk took over.
Wow.
And the Anti-Defamation League found a similar increase in anti-Semitic tweets.
It's not just the volume of hate speech either, it's also how the platform seems to be amplifying it.
Like actually making it spread further.
Exactly. The Washington Post did a report on this and found that pro-Hitler content was reaching a much larger audience on X compared to other platforms.
That's crazy.
And get this, the report found that X's own algorithm was actually recommending this content to users.
So the platform is actually pushing this stuff out there.
It seems that way. And the article lists a bunch of specific examples where X has basically failed to take action against hate speech.
Like what?
Well, there was that white nationalist who was able to buy a verified badge.
That's that blue check mark, right?
Yeah, the one that used to mean an account was legit. Then there was that ad calling for the death penalty for gay people.
Oh my God.
And tons of accounts openly promoting pro-Nazi and racist hashtags.
It's a pretty long list.
Yeah, it's pretty damning. And then there was that whole thing with the account that was openly praising Hitler.
They got a gold check badge, right?
Yeah, the kind that's supposed to be for legit organizations and businesses.
It's like, what are their priorities here?
I know.
Wow.
The author makes a really good point. They say that the output of a platform tells you what it's designed to do.
Okay.
And when you look at X's output, it's hard not to see that, at least in part, it's designed to promote hate speech and give a platform to white supremacists.
That's a tough thing to accept, especially for those of us who have been using the platform for years and have seen, its potential for good.
I know, that the evidence is there.
And the author actually goes as far as comparing X to notorious hate sites like Gab.
Wow.
They argue that the main difference is the presence of normal users like us.
Yeah, we're the ones who give X this appearance of respectability, who make it seem less extreme than it really is.
So are we like complicit in this by staying on the platform?
That's what the article suggests. They say that even if we're not posting the hateful content ourselves, our presence lends legitimacy to X and allows it to continue operating the way it does.
And the author's really open about their own struggles with this.
Yeah, they talk about all the benefits they've gotten from X, the connections, the opportunities to share their work.
Right.
But they're also really aware of the harm it's causing.
It's like this huge dilemma.
Yeah. Leaving X means losing access to a platform that, for all its faults, still has value. But staying could mean contributing to a platform that's promoting hate and harming real people.
It's a tough decision. And the author's not saying they have the answer.
Right.
But they're challenging us to think critically about our own choices and to understand the implications of staying or leaving. It's a call to action.
Absolutely. A challenge to take responsibility for the role we're playing in shaping the online world.
And We have to remember that this is just one perspective, one article.
Right.
It's important to seek out different viewpoints, read other articles and research.
Yeah, keep exploring the issue.
It really makes you think about just how much power certain individuals have in these online spaces.
Yeah.
I mean, we tend to think of social media as this level playing field, but the reality is way more complicated. Especially when you have someone like Elon Musk with so much control over a platform like X.
Absolutely. His wealth and influence give him a level of power over the narrative on X that's pretty much unheard of. He can promote content, he likes bury content he doesn't, and even tweak the algorithm to favor certain viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's a really unsettling amount of power for one person to have over a platform with such a massive audience.
Yeah, it's like he's the king of his own little digital kingdom. And the article makes this kind of disturbing comparison between X and sites like Stormfront, which are, explicitly designed for white supremacy. But the author argues that the key difference is us, the normal users. We're the ones giving X a veneer of respectability, making it seem less extreme and more mainstream.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but by using X, even if we personally condemn the hate speech, we're kind of giving it legitimacy.
So we're complicit just by being there.
The author definitely argues that point. They suggest that this perceived legitimacy is what allows X to keep operating the way it does.
Yeah.
If everyone who is disgusted by it actually left, it would lose its reach, its influence, and its profitability.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. It makes the decision to stay or leave feel a lot heavier. And the author is really honest about their own struggles with this.
Yeah, they talk about the benefits they've gotten from X personally and professionally, but they're finding it harder and harder to justify staying knowing the harm the platform is causing.
It's a real dilemma.
It is. How do you balance the personal and professional value you get from a platform with the ethical implications of supporting it when it's amplifying hate speech and maybe even inciting violence? It's a tough question with no easy answers.
And the article doesn't try to give us all the answers.
No, but it does give us a call to action.
It urges us to really think about our choices and to understand the impact we have just by being on or leaving a platform. We're not just passive consumers, we're active participants, and our choices have real consequences.
That's right. Whether we decide to stay on X or leave, we need to do it with a clear understanding of what that decision means.
This has been a really intense deep dive, and I want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion.
The future of online discourse really does depend on us being engaged and informed. So keep asking questions, keep researching, and keep demanding better from these platforms.
Exactly.
And that's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.